good evening, everyone. Welcome to the last Ramadan event organised by the Dialogue Society with the Fellowship Educational Society. My name's Emel and I'm your host for today. As you all know, this year has been marked by the spread of COVID-19 and the impact it has had on everyone in the UK and the rest of the world. Our thoughts and prayers are with everyone during these unprecedented times, with a special mention for the NHS staff, all key workers and their families who work relentlessly to overcome this pandemic. There is no doubt that without their dedication and altruism, we will be able to overcome this crisis. In times of crisis and heightened uncertainty, it is understandable to feel anxious. As communities around the world are struggling with coronavirus, we must remember to look after ourselves, keep each other safe, and come together in helping our local services to ensure the safety of our community at large. In accordance with government guidelines, the Dialogue Society and the Fellowship Educational Society have had to cancel all their upcoming events, unfortunately, in particular the Ramadan dinners, which take place every year. However, we will not be defeated, and thanks to technology, we are able to get together tonight online. So we will stick to our format of themed Ramadan events, and today's theme is standing together as a cohesive society during COVID-19. To show how we stand together as a cohesive society, I would like to share some incentives that have been taken by the Fellowship Educational Society. To help their community, volunteers have prepared and distributed 40 packages of food to refugees, immigrants and asylum seekers in Basingstoke during this pandemic. Volunteers have also prepared and given food to NHS workers a few times during the week, and they received feedback from one of the key workers, and I would like to share this with you all right now. Hi, I don't have the words to describe the appreciation to you and to your fellowship. The food was absolutely amazing and there was so much of it, and the pictures drawn by children melted our hearts. Many of us were in tears, and the purses they made were so clever. Please, my sincerest thank you on behalf of Community Mental Health Team for older adults. You truly are amazing and give us strength to carry on with the job we carry out. So now I would like to invite our panelists and let everyone know that we anticipate to finish this event no later than 9 p.m. So I will go through the running order of our panelists today. We first have a video that talks about Ramadan and a little video prepared by kids. We have a speech by Councillor Bill Soane, the Mayor of Wokingham. Then we have Mr. James Sunderland, the MP for Bracknell. We then have Dr. Hakan Gök, a fellow at Leeds Beckett University Research Centre for Governance, Leadership and Global Responsibility. We have the Reverend Olivia Graham, the Bishop of Reading. We have Imam Yahia from Aisha Masjid and Islamic Centre. We have Reverend David Jenkins, Caversham Methodist Church and Reading Interfaith Group. We then have a live music and Ebru performance by Arslan. We have Dr. Alan Laville, the Dean for Diversity and Inclusion, University of Reading. We have Mr. Nick Harborne, the Director of Reading Refugee Support Centre. We have Mr. Ian Caren, the Director of Launchpad Reading. And we have Gulistan Arslan, a Trustee of Time to Help UK. And we then have Mr. Harun Sarach. So welcome all our panelists and welcome again all our viewers. So first of all, we will be watching a short video prepared by the Dialogue Society and Time to Help UK about what Ramadan means. And after this video, we will watch the Ramadan greetings from the little volunteers of the Fellowship Educational Society in the Berkshire area. I hope you enjoy it.
peaceful Ramadan.
Have lots of delicious foods in iftar. Happy Ramadan Mubarak.
May Allah fill your home with warmth and peace. Happy Ramadan.
I wish you a happy, peaceful Ramadan Mubarak.
Welcome Ramadan. Walk humbly, talk politely, dress neatly, treat kindly, pray attentively, donate generously. May Allah bless you and protect you. Happy Ramadan, everyone!
Ramadan Mubarak, everyone!
Thank you to all our volunteers who have prepared this wonderful video, and we wish you a happy Ramadan as well. Now I would like to start with the Mayor of Wokingham, Councillor Bill Soane. A very warm welcome, Councillor. Can you please tell us about the initiatives that are taken by your council to support businesses and any other measures that are taken to support the various communities in your borough?
Yes, I mean, first of all, can I thank you for the invitation to join with you tonight? It's rather sad that we're not being able to meet all together in person, as I have done in many past years at your centre in Woodley. So it's a great shame this year that we can't be together, but thanks to technology, at least we can do it online. I think the thing with the local authorities and Wokingham in particular is that we have taken the initiative that our residents obviously at this time do come first. Certainly we are looking at the situation as far as making sure that food is available through a number of our food hubs, the main one being at St Crispin's School in Wokingham, making sure that people have access to food and that it is available for them. I think the other thing that's important is the isolation that can be felt during this lockdown period. It's very easy when you have a family to forget that there are those people in the community that are on their own, and lockdown has become particularly difficult for them. And I think we've tried to encourage where we can for people to take that initiative and actually contact people, to make friends with people. And I think when you think about what's been happening during the period of this epidemic, there are good things that have come from it and perhaps will come from it. I think we've become a nation that cares for each other. I think if you take just the fact of a Thursday night when we all go out and clap for our care workers and our NHS staff, it's good to be able to recognise the work that they do. But one thing I've noticed in my own street is that people actually are starting to talk to each other. Whereas perhaps in the past, they didn't know their neighbours. But now, when you're out there, you're talking to them at a distance, I might add, but we are talking to them and we are actually finding out that what lives everybody else has. And I think this is something that will continue. And I hope it does continue after this epidemic is over. I think that the big thing is, as far as the society, the communities in Wokingham are concerned and all over the country, is that we've been very reliant on the volunteers, and not just the volunteers that were there before this event. We've got a number of new volunteers coming on and actually working to make life better for many people. I think the important thing is that we can see that when all this is over, and I hope that it's the case, that these volunteers will have gained so much satisfaction out of what they've done that they will continue to volunteer in the future in one form or another. And I think that's something positive that can come out of this, if there's anything positive that can come out of it. I think as far as the Borough Council is concerned, you mentioned the fact that what we are doing to support our businesses. We have a team that are constantly in contact with our businesses within the Wokingham Borough. As you may be aware, Wokingham Borough has gone through, or Wokingham Town itself has gone through a regeneration period. And this has attracted a number of new businesses, some of them large multiples, but some of them small independent traders. And it's been a very difficult time for a business that's just starting up in a new town to be able to maintain the business. And hopefully when all this is over, they will still be there. And we've been able to make grants to these people, partly through the government. We've had, I think, somewhere in the region of about £20 million from the central government to allocate to small businesses and to new businesses that will help them through this period. There's also a relaxation on business rates for a period of time. And I think that's the financial side. I think also, of course, we've got to be aware that there's other aspects to this, not only just financial. There's the problems where they are employing people, that they've had to either furlough people and hopefully not lay them off permanently. And I think this is a great thing and a great initiative that's come from our government. There's a lot to be said for everybody who's worked together. And I think, when you think about the problems that are around, this week actually is Mental Health Awareness Week. And the focus is on kindness. And I think at a time like this, this is perhaps one of the most important aspects. Mental health will come to people, mental health problems will come to people perhaps who didn't experience it before because of loss of income, loss of a job, concerns over their health and the health of their families. And also, of course, there is this issue with domestic abuse. And it's something that we've got to be very aware of. And I think with also isolation and loneliness, it doesn't take a lot to actually just pick up the phone, talk to somebody. And that's something else that we've done throughout the town of Woodley, where I live, and in the borough, is to try and keep in contact with people who maybe experience isolation and loneliness. It is a great problem at this time. I think if you're on your own and you're living perhaps in a flat, you don't have a garden, it's going to be a very lonely time. And I think we've got to be aware and actually go out and help these people. I think, as I say, it's a great shame that through the lovely weather that we've had, that we've been isolated. But I think we're very lucky the weather we've had. It's made it a little bit easier if you can get out in the garden and that. But I hope people will stay safe and will heed the government's warnings about self-isolation and be very careful about what they're doing. We can get through this, but I think it's going to be a very much a team effort. And hopefully we will come out of it perhaps better on the other side. I don't know about financially better, but perhaps we will come out better people for it. So that's where I am. Any other points you'd like me to answer? Please ask.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for sharing this with us and for all the hard work that is being put in by the Borough of Wokingham. And as you said, it is a team effort, and we'll be able to come over this soon if everyone listens to the government and stays safe at home. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mr. James Sunderland, a Member of Parliament for Bracknell. Welcome to our virtual Ramadan event, Mr. James. Could you please share your thoughts and your work for your constituency, please?
Hello, and I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
A good start, actually. Well, if you can look behind me, you might look at this strange wallpaper on the wall. And the reason for that is because I'm currently sitting in Westminster in the palace after a full day in the chamber today. I've not gone home yet, so please forgive me for the echo and the rather strange oak panelling and the old pictures behind me, but it's a great privilege to be here. I just want to say thank you to everyone for this great invitation. I've had a long association with the Ahmadiyya community for some time. I was very proud to attend the Jalsa Salana last year. It was a brilliant event. It's great to have many friends within the community. But of course, the important thing for me is that it's not just about one community, it's about all communities. And whatever community you're from, it's really important that we do communicate, we talk, we get on, we share things, work together. It might be strange, for a politician to say that, but it's really important as well that we work with the opposition in Parliament and that we work with all parties to achieve that consensus and that common goal that's so important to all of us. I think what I might do, just for my short slot, is talk very briefly about my last role which is relevant before I became a politician, talk about Bracknell, and then talk about the community which I'm very proud to serve. But I left the British Army in December last year. I became a candidate for the Conservative Party in Bracknell at very short notice. I left the army in 6 days, which I think is set a record. Nobody's left the army quicker, unless of course you, unless of course you go to jail or something. But I was very lucky in the sense that I got an opportunity in Bracknell. I grabbed it with two hands. Very proud to have won the election in Bracknell, and I've been an MP now for 6 months. But my previous role was as a British Army colonel. I was very pleased to lead an organisation called the Army Engagement Group, where I was paid with my team to go around the country talking to communities, churches, everyone, all faiths. And it's then that I came into contact with the Ahmadiyya for the first time, and I loved my time with you. I love that job. I had some fantastic soldiers working for me, all creeds, colours, male, female, black and white, gay and straight, a remarkably diverse, brilliant team. And I realised that communities across the UK are actually quite similar. Whilst we may look different, whilst we might eat different food, we may worship differently, actually the similarities between mankind are really extraordinary. And it's that similarity and that comradeship and that kindred spirit which I think is really important. And of course in the UK we're very lucky in the sense that we do have these religious freedoms that allow us to operate as we might wish, and that's something that we need to hold on to very dearly. We've got churches, mosques, synagogues. We have this great pedigree of diversity, but community in the UK, and that's a theme I want to major on today. I think having become the MP in Bracknell in December last year, I'm at the 6-month point now, and of course my patch covers Bracknell, but also Crowthorne. It covers Finch Hampstead, Sandhurst, where the academy is, and Wokingham without. So it's brilliant, to see my predecessor this evening, because of course part of his patch is also part of my patch, and I'm very lucky to have Finch Hampstead and Wokingham without, which are part of Wokingham Borough, but of course part of Bracknell constituency. Who knows if that might change? There's a boundary review in full flow now, but I'm very, very proud to have 1 foot in Bracknell and 1 foot in Wokingham. In terms of COVID-19, very quickly, I don't want to get political because I'm not overly political, even as a Conservative MP. But I think it's worth noting that the government response to COVID-19 in the UK, it hasn't been perfect, but it's there. And I can tell you with complete confidence that politicians that I know and work alongside very closely have taken good decisions in good faith all the way through. And in terms of community, this is costing the government an absolute fortune. But the important thing is that the money is going, hopefully, in 95% of cases where it's needed. I think we'll be in to about £500 billion at the end of this, and that's a Conservative estimate. But the point is the schemes are generous. People who qualify are being looked after, wages are being paid for the majority. Clearly, it's impossible to catch everyone for a whole variety of reasons, but the schemes are quite generous, and I want to commend the government for what it's doing for all those affected. Clearly, without getting too morbid, the infection rate and the mortality rate in the UK is very, very high, which is horrible, and our hearts go out to everyone affected. It has been just awful for so many. But I think, on a positive note, I just wonder how much worse it would have been or could have been without the measures that have been taken. And as I said, there will be a public inquiry in due course, but I just want to place on record the fact that people do care, that politicians do care, that government is genuinely caring, and that we're doing the best that we can for everyone in the UK to the best of our ability. And finally, just to talk locally for a minute, I've been out actually during the lockdown period. I've been volunteering with a number of organisations. Very important to me personally, as an ex-military man, I'm not going to sit in the house unless I really have to. And it's quite important that somebody who cares very deeply about the community, that I've been out both in Wokingham with the Wokingham Borough Hub that's in Crespin's Leisure Centre. And of course, you've got a charity there called First Days, the Citizens Advice Bureau, Link, fantastic people coming together and running this amazing service to deliver food parcels to those who need to isolate. And I've personally been out, knocked on doors across the borough, delivering food. Clearly, I've kept my distance, had my gloves on, disinfected everything from the bags to the food itself. But, you know, I want to commend everybody in Wokingham for what they've done. It's been remarkable. And that community coming together has been fantastic to see. And again, it's male and female, it's gay and straight, it's black and white, all faiths coming together. And secondly, in Bracknell as well, a very similar organisation, one run by Health Watch Bracknell Forest, with, again, an organisation called Involved Community Services coming together with volunteers. And same thing, knocking on doors, delivering food for people, collecting prescriptions. I mean, I was even asked to walk some dogs, which I was happy to do as a Member of Parliament. And again, this thing has been terrible in terms of the pandemic, but they say that, you know, it's these adverse situations which bring people together. And we've seen that. And we've seen great kindness, great community spirit. We've seen people in care homes. I mean, just consider for a second these amazing frontline workers and key workers and NHS staff. I mean, in the care homes, we've had people that have been living in the care homes with residents, living in caravans. They've been sleeping in tents in the garden, not going home and seeing their own families. And that amazing selflessness and that amazing devotion to duty and that humanity is something that we must celebrate. So every cloud has a silver lining. And I think finally, just to leave you with a very, very positive thought. I'm a great believer in humanity. I'm a great believer in what people do for each other. You know, good will always triumph over evil. And I think we've seen that during the COVID-19 pandemic. Can I thank you very much, Dean, for the invitation? I do regret that I have to go to my next conference call, but wish you all the best for a great evening. You have a friend in Parliament, and thank you so much indeed.
Thank you so much, Mr. James Sunderland. And as you said, adverse situations do actually bring people together. So hopefully this COVID-19 pandemic will bring everyone together and we'll be a good community. And also good luck in your new role. Good luck with everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Best wishes, everyone.
Good evening. Now let's hear from Dr. Hakan Gök, who is a fellow at Leeds Beckett University in Research Centre for Governance, Leadership and Global Responsibility. So welcome, Dr. Gök.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
No, sorry. Could you please share your thoughts about Ramadan, especially under these current circumstances?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's one of those awkward Ramadan events because when I'm normally invited to an event like this, there is usually a big meal awaiting. But this one is fairly unusual. Everything is online. But yeah, we are going to beat the virus. So we still get together and celebrate the spirit of this holy month. Well, I do a research on global responsibility, governance and leadership. I was listening to a fellow scholar from the Netherlands. It was an interesting speech and I said, right, I'm going to give the right reference and quote your thoughts on this. He said, a lot of people think economy is the biggest problem in the world. He says it's not. Some people think it is the ecology which is the biggest problem in the world. And he says, it is not. He says, the biggest problem of humanity is egology. So it's a made up word. He says a lot of people, they put their ego and self at the center of everything. If I'm well, if I'm good, I don't really care about the rest of the world. And he said, for the betterment of humanity, we should fight towards eliminating selfishness and sort out this egology problem. He said, I love the idea. It is true. So what does fasting do in terms of betterment of humanity? Well, I'm a big guy. I like my morning coffee. I like my food. I like discovering new tastes. But for the last 28 days, I stopped eating at 3:30 in the morning till 9:10, which is a tough gig, if I may say that. But, you know, as the mayor pointed out, the kindness, you become a kinder person. Suddenly, you become more empathetic to other people. Now you're not eating, you're not drinking. Everything becomes so valuable. You know, that glass of water at 9:10, you would do anything for that glass of water, especially on a day like this. It's very hot and I'm sweating in my office. So it is sort of stop and reflect moment for many fasting people. And it makes you more empathetic towards others. The other day, some time ago, I was in Leeds City Centre with a friend for Wokingham Park Row, and he deliberately was giving money to beggars on the street. And you know, the typical attitude is, oh, look at them, they could get benefit, they could you know, work. What's wrong with them? Why are they begging? And he said to me, he said, no one with a right mind would put themselves in a situation like this. I'm 100% sure they are quite desperate. You know, they're addicted to drugs, probably they're hungry. And he says, among all these people on the street, these are the ones who need the help the most. That's why I always have some coins in my pocket and I do very little for these people. Because he simply can empathize, he can put themselves in their shoes. During the month of Ramadan, this is the sensation I get. You know, I usually hear the stories of poverty in certain parts of the world, but when you put yourself in their shoes, not being able to eat, not being able to drink, not being able to sleep, and you really understand, you really, you know, feel what they feel like. So I think fasting for 18 hours nearly makes you a better person. You know, it spiritually uplifts you. Years ago, we were in Lincolnshire in a workplace, and we were fasting again. A colleague, Rebecca, she says, so to tell us more about this fasting, because I'm gonna give it a go. And she did. She had one full day fasting. And I said to her, I said, Becky, what makes you, you know, imitate what we do? And she said, you know, we are men with banter most of the time, but she spotted when we were fasting, we are behaving, we are nicer. And she says, well, I just wanted to have that sensation. I think really does something to you guys. So I want to, you know, imitate the feeling. And she did so fast one another, probably kinder to one another. We have got only 3 days left after Sunday, but I think everybody should try, you know, fasting for 18 hours. I can guarantee it makes you a nicer, kinder, more tolerant. Get to talk for 5 minutes, but I benefit from the speeches of all other colleagues, and I do enjoy being part of this panel. If there are any questions regarding questions, otherwise I'll stop here.
Thank you
Because
so much.
you are like a diesel engine, she says to me. You make it warm up, you keep going until someone puts the brake on. So I'm gonna stop now, but I can try to answer your questions if you have any.
Thank you so much. It will be nice to hear you, but I guess we have to give some time for the others. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Watch a short video prepared by the Dialogue Society that is entitled Jazzing Up's #Staying at Home. So I hope you enjoy it.
Hi, I'm Francis, and during lockdown I'm trying to find lots of creative things to do with baby Daniel. And we've had lots of good ideas from my friend Laura for music and sensory activities to do together.
Hi, I'm Nancy Platts, leader of Bracknell Hove City Council. During lockdown I've been upcycling this little desk that I bought from the flea market in Kemp Town.
Hi there, I'm Jane and I'm using this COVID crisis as an opportunity to get on with some painting, and where could be better than one's own back garden.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome. This is Tamkin Riaz. During lockdown COVID-19 I'm at home, but I still keep my routine in after 5. Then I'll be on FaceTime and WhatsApp and Skype, etc., talking to the children, grandchildren and friends. So that's me, yeah, lockdown. Keep yourself healthy and wealthy. Your health is your wealth.
I'm staying home making English paper-pieced patchwork quilts. Here's the one I'm working on at the moment, made of old curtain fabrics. There's some of the papers. And this is one I made a while ago from old shirts. It's a great way to recycle fabrics, and it's also a very good way of staying calm and creative.
Assalamu alaikum. My name's Ajay Hussain. I live in Rochester. I came out here to Pakistan in Azad Kashmir end of February actually. So people are occupying themselves with reading, zikr, Quran, but also daily life goes on. So this is what it's all about here.
I'm Max Farah. My escape from the lockdown is the beautiful park in Leeds called Roundhay Park and looking at the swans.
My name's Annalisa Dodds. I live in Oxford, where I'm one of the members of Parliament. I've been asked to take part in this project by one of my constituents. I think as we stay at home, it's really important that we look out for others. And I've been so impressed by all the work that's going on to do that. Whether it's ringing an elderly neighbour or offering to help somebody out with their shopping, there's so much that communities are doing together. Let's keep that going, even after we get out of this crisis.
Hi everyone, my name is Iffy, and this is a quick message just to say thank you to everyone who has been supporting their communities, looking after the vulnerable and supporting the NHS. And please, please, please continue to stay at home so it can enable us to fight coronavirus and flatten the curve.
So I'm so sorry. I've just got the news that the YouTube streaming has some issues. So we're just trying to fix that. I hope it won't take long, but okay. So I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I hope it's been an inspiration for all of us to jazz up at home and to stay positive. So now let's listen to Bishop of Reading, Reverend Olivia Graham. Welcome, Bishop Olivia.
Thank you. Thank you. It's lovely to be here together with everybody and everybody who's watching this. The title of this was advertised, Standing Together Against the Global Pandemic. And I think that's a really good way to describe what many of us feel the task of the moment is. We've already heard an awful lot from other speakers about the solidarity, the community, the family and neighbourly affection and loyalty that we've all experienced. And I think we probably all felt really heartened by that, and we rejoice that it's happening. And we've seen the signs of it everywhere. We've already spoken about the volunteering and the food parcels and the commitment to looking after our frontline workers, the health care staff and the staff of care homes, and our applause for the NHS on Thursday nights and so on. And one of the really heartening things about it has been the way that the churches and the mosques and the local authorities and the community organisations and many other players, including those of all faiths, have worked together on this for the common good. we've shown that we can do this together really well, and that's a wonderful thing. It really heartens us and builds our sense of society. But I think that as I was thinking about this evening, what I really want to share tonight is that we're perhaps now entering a phase of increased stress, in which there's a danger that all of the good things that we've seen come into being, all the alliances that we've built and the concerns that we've shared and the action we've taken, all this may start to unravel, to fracture. I think we've started to see this happen already. As there's been a bit of a loosening of the lockdown and we've come out sort of blinking and taking small steps into the daylight, we've seen that it's become easy to be over anxious. Some people have gone a little wild and pushed the boundaries. Some have retreated into themselves and not really wanted to engage. And we talked to, the last speaker talked a little bit, Dr. Gökhan, about the ego. I think that we've perhaps seen that our own desires and needs have started to come more to the fore, and we've maybe pushed a little bit into the background the knowledge that we have been together up until now in all of this, and that we've shared a national experience of love and of grief. This terrible virus has given us an opportunity to rethink what we're about and to inch towards some new ideas about how we'd like our lives to be. And I think we've got the opportunity to take another look at our common life and to ask ourselves, what is really important? The virus has intensified the contradictions which are all around us and brought them into the light so we can't hide from them anymore. We have an opportunity to construct a future which is better than what's gone before. And we can do this if we stand together. So now it's less about standing together against something and more about standing together for something. I think that's the phase that we're in now. So what do we want to stand together for is my next question. Well, I think as a society, we have some pretty important questions to think about. And those of us who are faith leaders will come at them from a particular perspective, which relates to how we see and understand God and what actions our faith in God leads us into. As a Christian, my faith demands of me that I love my neighbour and treat each created person and thing as a part of God's world, a beloved part of God's world, worthy of honour and respect. And all the major faiths share a version of the golden rule that we should treat others as we ourselves would like to be treated. So how do we stand together for the common good, for the good of our whole society and our planet? That's my question. So here's another question that relates to it. How important is stuff in our lives? How much are our lives dominated by the things that we buy? And how wasteful have we become in the habits we have of buying, consuming, discarding, and then buying the next thing? While shops have been closed and we haven't easily been able to get more stuff, although of course there's always Amazon and deliveries and so on, we've done quite a bit of that. But I think we have learnt more about valuing what we have and making it last, cherishing, repairing. We saw a lovely bit in the video about somebody upcycling a desk. And I think that's been good for all of us, for our souls, as much as our pockets. And it's also been good for the planet. And here's another question. How important are our relationships in our lives? How much attention do we normally pay to our relationships? And how many do we have which go any deeper than quick words of greeting and comment? I think during the time when we haven't been able to meet up with people in the real world, we've discovered more about the importance of other people in our lives, even while the number that we can actually touch has shrunk. And of course, some people have been locked down in total isolation. But that discovery of relationships and their importance, I think, has been good for our humanity. James talked about the decisions that our governments had to make, and it's walking across difficult ground at the moment as it thinks about the common good. And the question is, do we prioritize health or wealth? That's a little bit of a glib thing to say, but actually there's a lot of depth, I think, behind those ideas. The last few months have certainly highlighted appalling inequalities in our society as well as in our world. They've highlighted our wastefulness, the scandal of low pay and insecure employment, the high level of food insecurity, the vulnerability of refugees and asylum seekers and prisoners, those who are homeless, those who are on the edge. And they've shone a particular light on mental illness, on disability, domestic violence, and of course, on all of those who are digitally disenfranchised. And they've made us realize that our environment likes it when we travel less and consume less and throw away less. The thing that I think we have to remember is that we have a choice now about what happens next. How does our standing together against a lethal virus translate into standing together for a better society and a better world? That's the challenge. And I would be really glad to accept that challenge, standing shoulder to shoulder with all of you and joining the movement of people who are saying, let's not go back. The future must be different. Let's not go back to how it was. I feel that a new conversation is starting and I'm seeing it popping up all over the place. I think we must join our voices into that conversation. So I'll finish, I know we're pressed for time. Thank you very much for your companionship and your solidarity. To our Muslim brothers and sisters, thank you for the seriousness with which you seek God in prayer and fasting. Ramadan Mubarak, may the feast of Eid when it comes be very joyful for all of you. And may God's blessing be on all of us as we stand together for a better world.
Thank you so much, Bishop Olivia. It was very inspiring. And as Christianity says and Islam says, we should love our neighbors and we should treat others the way we expect to be treated. And especially during this pandemic, I hope we can put this into practice. So thank you very much, Bishop. Now, I would like to invite Imam Yahia from Aisha Masjid and Islamic Center. So welcome, Imam Yahia.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Could you please tell us about your thoughts about the current pandemic and its impact on your masjid and the Muslim community in Reading?
Well, first of all, I'd like to start with praising Almighty God, that He is the one who has created us. He is the one who, created whatever we see around us. And, many of us, we believe that a day will come that we will return back to God. So all praise due to Him. And the next thing I would want to say is I want to pray really for all the frontline workers out there, who are risking their own lives to protect and help other people. I want to make prayer for them that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, may God Almighty protect them, meaning the frontline workers, protect them from all types of diseases, viruses, from all calamities, discomfort, and protect their families and protect all the ones near them. Because what they are doing, it's a very big thing. They're risking everything so they can help other people. So, the least we could do is we could pray for them, that Almighty God keeps them protected at all times. And yes, here at Aisha Masjid and Islamic Center, it's been 2 months now, where as soon as the lockdown started, we had to close the mosque down. I regularly, what I do, I come to the mosque and I do my service via Zoom or our mosque Facebook Live or YouTube Live, so that people who are out there, at home, they can still benefit and somehow keep connection with the local mosque. Now, remember, with our local community, with our local mosque, every Fridays, we had around 800 to 900 people gathering just for one prayer. 800 to 900 people gathering to one prayer. After that, they will, meet each other. And then, it's a day of happiness because way for the religions, let's talk about the religion of Islam, Christianity and Judaism. Almighty God gave the Jewish community the Saturday for them to celebrate, or for them to, it's made it specific for them to do ibadah, to worship. For the community of for Christians, Almighty God chose them for them Sunday, and for the Muslims it's a Friday. So for us, a Friday, it's a big day, it's a day of blessing, and it's a day of happiness where we all, the Muslim community, we get together, and throughout the week everyone's busy with the work and busy with all the other commitments. That's the time where in that half an hour or 45 minutes we get a chance to speak and mingle with each other, very on the go. But it's been 2 months, we're missing that so much. That community connection is not there. Everyone's at home, which we have to stay at home because that's the safest thing to do. But that thing every Friday we had, plus now we have the blessed month of Ramadan, where again we have during Friday in Ramadan, what happens, we from 800 it goes to 1300 people. The number increases for Friday prayers, and for daily prayers it increases to 70 people for morning prayers, for afternoon prayers, for evening prayers, and for night prayers again when we come and gather and pray during the night for an hour or hour and a half. Again, that's another gathering we're missing so much due to the COVID, and where we can't complain because everything happens for a reason. And at least one thing from this lockdown we've learned, I do mention in my sermons and all that, at least it's given us the opportunity to understand what family, the value of our own families, because people have been, so engrossed with working so much, giving time to work and all other commitment. But this has opened the doors for us to spend more time with our own family, our wives, our children, our brothers, sisters, our parents. So, even though it's a very difficult time, with this difficult time, there is a lot of good things we have learned from this lockdown, such as the first one was the time that we spent and we're spending with our family, and we can concentrate on ourselves, our spiritual side, because the month of Ramadan, Ramadan is a month where we are from dawn all the way till sunset, we are forbidden. God, Almighty God said, do not eat or drink from dawn till sunset. Now that's preventing, we're preventing ourselves from eating and drinking. Even though if we want, we can go hide, we can eat, we can drink, no one's watching us. But still, no one's watching us, we still, we don't eat, we don't drink. Why? Because we know this is the commandments of God Almighty. So the same way, when we are fasting, we're not just working on our eating and drinking habits, we need to discipline ourselves. We're disciplining with our food and drinking habits, we're disciplining at the same time our spiritual side, where, if something happens, where some doctor, I think Dr. Hakan mentioned something about ego. Ego is something dangerous, it, destroys people. When ego kicks in, that's it. There's no way that person's dropping back. So that's the month. It helps spiritually, it helps a person, to calm themselves down, to, discipline themselves and push the ego behind them, and all the other spiritual benefits you can get. We can do that through this blessed month of Ramadan, because we're not just disciplining ourselves with food and drink, we're disciplining ourselves with other character, with other personalities. If we was to swear a lot, we reduce that, or we totally stop that. If we was to backbite or, for others, or slandering others, or causing fitna, causing, trouble and trouble amongst communities or people, breaking, relationship, we are working on these as well. Not just our food and eating and drinking habits. We're working on our character. And that's the most important thing. If we can work on our character, then this ego, we can work on our ego. When ego kicks in, we can control our ego. We can control ourselves. Where Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, I think it was Olivia who did mention, where Prophet sallallahu alaihi Muhammad says, "La yu'minu ahadukum hatta yuhibba akhi ma yuhibbu li nafsi," that you are not a complete believer until what you like for yourself, you like that for others. So what you dislike for yourself, you dislike for others. So now this is a guideline. If all of us was to follow this, everyone in the world was to follow this guideline. What you like for yourself, you should like that for others. What you dislike for yourself, you dislike for others. Then we will see, love, harmony, unity around every community. And this is what we need to work for. This is what we need to, put our effort behind humanity. We need to, Prophet Muhammad was sent not for Muslims. He was sent rahmatan lil alameen. He was sent for the whole mankind. He wasn't sent for Muslims only. He was sent for every humankind, not just humankind, for animals, for everything. Everything's out there in this world. Prophet Muhammad has been sent for that, so that he can help each other. Jazakumullah khair. Sorry if I have taken too much of the time.
It's all right. Thank you so much, Imam Yahia, for sharing
You're welcome.
And your prayers. Now I would like to also do a quick shout out for all the volunteers at Reading for preparing lots of food packages for GPs and NHS workers. So thank you so much for that. And now I would like to talk to Reverend David Jenkins, representing Caversham Methodist Church and Reading Interfaith Group. So welcome, Reverend David.
Hello, thank you very much for organising this event so well. Thank you to the Dialogue Society. Thank you to the Fellowship Society for the way this is organised year after year. A particular personal thanks to Emra Senna, who is a friend to whom I feel great affection and respect. Emra is also very involved in Reading Interfaith Group 2. You're doing really good work, and it was very encouraging to hear about what's happening during Ramadan, reading the Quran more, being involved in charities and everything of that kind. In the branch of the faith to which I belong, spiritual devotion in balance with living out social justice is so important. And there are many parallels between the ways in which we see and follow things through. I've been thinking particularly about interconnectedness. I was recently just finished reading the Book of Joy. During this book, it describes a week when two great friends who are both leading spiritual leaders in the world, the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu, spent time together. During that time, the Dalai Lama was saying that for him, his prayers in the morning that begin at 3 o'clock in the morning, his meditation that then extends for some hours, is concentrated upon the other 7 million people in the world. It's a prayer that reminds him that he is linked with the whole of humanity, and that is the basis of compassion. Now, his friend Desmond Tutu was recalling the African concept of Ubuntu. I am because we are. We are all involved together in the bundle of life. We belong together, therefore we need to act together. Our former Prime Minister, Theresa May, who is Prime Minister, who is a Member of Parliament for Berkshire constituency next door to that of James Sunderland, she was recently voicing her disappointment that with all that is facing us as a world, we are not responding as a world. There's a global pandemic. There is climate change that affects all of us. There'll now be a recession which affects all of us, but we're not responding together now, not as effectively as once we would have done. We are very much nation states where people are pursuing their own agendas and sometimes instead of working together are working in contradiction with each other. So one of the challenges for us is to face our global problems together with one another, which you are seeking to do through Ramadan. Some final words from the person who was the founder of the particular branch of the Christian faith I belong to, a man called John Wesley, who, as it happened, was also a member of the Church of England all through his life. He once said, religion is nothing but love. Love originates in God. The very nature of God is love. Jesus embodies that love. The Holy Spirit energizes that love in human beings. And the calling of Jews and Christians, and no doubt all of us, is to love God with all our heart and soul and strength and mind, and our neighbor as ourselves. In lockdown, there's no lockdown on love. We have opportunity, even though we may not be able to see each other or touch each other, some of the people who are closest to us in life, we still have the opportunity of being in contact with each other. And we have seen many practical things that are being done by the Muslim community, by the council, by other groups within the life of our nation. No lockdown on love, but finding ways in which together we work at meeting the problems that we have. In Judaism, there is an understanding that when the Jewish people went into exile in Babylon, they had lost so much that was central to their life. They had lost what was familiar, what mattered, and it seemed like an unmitigated disaster. But it was while they were in Babylon that they reflected a great deal, and their understanding of God as the God of all peoples became stronger than ever. And some of the writings that they produced at that time are among the very best and most cherished and deepest insights of the Hebrew scriptures. All of us, in all our backgrounds, this can be a time of opportunity for us. When Ramadan finishes, when any period in life finishes, there's still this period of lockdown. And during that period, there is opportunity for us to grow closer to God, closer to each other, and to live out this life of love to which all of us are called. Thank you again for the invitation of being here and the immense privilege of speaking this evening.
Thank you so much, Reverend David, for joining us. And as you said, there's no lockdown on love, so we should try to spread our love to our neighbours, and hopefully we'll be able to come over this pandemic together. So thank you. Now we have a live Ebru marble performance, but before we move on to this performance, I would like to give you some background information about this art. So the history of Ebru art goes back to Central Asia in the 15th century, and was then further developed by well-known Ebru artists during the Ottoman Empire era. And starting in the 17th century, this art form also started to become popular in Europe when it grabbed the attention of European travelers traveling to the Middle East. And Ebru art has been widely used for book covers, and they're used as background for calligraphy pieces. And this art is also included in the UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage List. So now I would like to invite Afra Nur Dolodizgin for her live Ebru marble art performance. Thank you so much, Arslan, for this magical experience. And I hope our viewers have enjoyed this spectacular piece of art as well. So thank you so much for that.
It's my pleasure, Emel. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you for coming. Now, I would like to quickly do an announcement. I think we will overrun by a few minutes, so many apologies to all our viewers and our panelists. Now I would like to move to Dr. Alan Laville, the Dean for Diversity and Inclusion at the University of Reading. So welcome, Dr. Laville.
Hello, thank you.
Could you please share your thoughts about the impact of this pandemic to the university and its students, please?
Absolutely, yes. So at this time, and as everyone said in the various different speeches today, looking at the importance of community. And for me, I see us very much as one community. And when we look at the university more specifically, we think about staff and students within that community. And what we've really focused on recently is thinking about how, although we may be physically distanced from one another, Reading's a beautiful campus and we often are by the lake and sitting on the benches, etc. But how can we still be socially connected? So our Equality, Diversity and Inclusion staff networks have done a lot of online events. Our Students' Union have done a lot of online events, one of the most recently being Ida Hobbit, which is the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia and Transphobia, which was last week. A lot of our meetings and our core activities also moved online, including teaching, and students have been absolutely fantastic in their understanding of the teaching that is online, the different methods that are used. And personally, I found, because I still have a role in the School of Psychology and Clinical Language Sciences, that students have really benefited from the various different ways of learning. So using discussion boards, interacting with others through Blackboard Collaborate, for example, which is fairly similar to Microsoft Teams, but then also focusing on the wellbeing aspect. So as speakers have mentioned earlier, this is the Mental Health Awareness Week. As someone through a psychology background and an NHS background, I'm very passionate about that and thinking about how are we checking in with one another. So starting meetings with a wellbeing check-in, both with staff and students, and in a way that we're actively listening to one another. So we know there's passive listening and actively listening. And of course, we always want to be on that active listening end and thinking about how that would feature within the activity that we're doing. So one recent example that I can think of is there was a teaching and learning catch-up that was around 50 members of staff. And that was really just to catch up about anything and everything. So we were talking about where's the best place to buy flour from in terms of ingredients and how people have managed childcare while working with COVID-19 going on as well. So no solid objectives rather than connecting with each other. So that's how the university has come together at this time, both in terms of diversity and inclusion, but also thinking how we're interacting with staff and students. But there's another arm to that as well, which is how we're connecting with our local community. So making sure that we're still connecting through our Thames Valley employer networks that we have across diversity inclusion strands, but also how we're connecting with local charity and voluntary sector organisations, such as Support You in Reading, and how we can maintain contact in that way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Laville, for joining us and informing us about the situation in University of Reading and how you're keeping connected. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you for having me.
Now let's turn to Nick. Welcome, Nick. So as the director of Reading Refugee Support Centre, you have been actively involved with refugees and asylum seekers for many years. And we were just wondering what changes you've noticed during this pandemic, and could you please summarise the work that you do to support refugees during this period?
It would help if I unmuted myself.
Hello.
Hi, my name's Nick. I'm the CEO at Reading Refugee Support Group. Been asked to talk about standing together against the global pandemic from the perspective of a refugee. So I'm going to start by pointing out that Sir Tom Moore is to be knighted. And as we all know, Sir Tom is the 100-year-old war veteran who raised almost 33 million for NHS charities by walking laps of his garden. Sir Tom's simple act caught the imagination of the entire country, bringing everybody together in support of the NHS nurses and doctors on the front line as they lead the fight against the coronavirus. So thank you, Sir Tom. Thank you to all our nurses and doctors at the NHS. And thank you to all those people who contributed to raising 33 million. Thank you to everybody for standing together against the global pandemic that threatens us all. But when we all stand together in this manner, are we all together? Reading Refugee Support Group has just spent the past 3 days advocating on behalf of an asylum seeker with a tragic history, serious health needs, unable to speak English, transferred by the Home Office from where they were living near to their immediate family to Reading. They were transferred with such short notice that they were unable to gather any of their personal belongings. They were taken from the care of the NHS services, been caring for their serious and complicated health needs, and placed in hospital in Reading, but were due to be discharged into a hotel without any healthcare support services in place. They didn't even have a change of underwear. They were not informed of when they were being relocated, why, or even where they were heading. There was no care plan in place. So my question is, when we are all standing together as we sit together tonight, how do we ensure we include those unable to stand in the first place? When we talk about refugees and asylum seekers, we often use terms like hard to reach. I say, I know where the refugees and asylum seekers are in our communities. They are not hard to reach. They may be a bit too expensive to reach. As a community, are they hard to hear? Or do we just not listen hard enough? Easy to ignore is probably a more accurate description of how we care for people sometimes, especially in this case. Or easy to blame, as Nigel Farage has just demonstrated when he described 20 asylum seekers bailing out a sinking boat as an invasion of the UK. It is easy to stand up and applaud together Sir Tom raising 30 million and congratulate each other on what a compassionate society we are, unaware at the same time of a dispersed asylum seeker in hospital, lying there confused and humiliated because they have no underwear. Are we really standing side by side with our fellow human beings generally, let alone acknowledging the challenges of the coronavirus? This question, I think, should cause us to think. And in this case, the answer is happily yes. A lot of people stood together. On hearing of the plight of the asylum seeker, unasked, immediately, staff at Reading Refugee instinctively kicked into action and found somebody who could speak the person's mother tongue, gathered clothing and toiletries and took them over to the asylum seeker, talked with them, learned of their harrowing story and the ongoing stress of being an asylum seeker in the UK, but also reassured them, listened to them, provided solidarity and compassion. Reading Refugee was also able to advocate on their behalf with the Home Office. And as of tonight, I understand they are going back to the care of the original NHS, close to their family again, and back into the care of the NHS social worker and first asked us for help. Such was their concern for this asylum seeker. So collectively, as a society, if a fellow human being can be destitute without adequate healthcare and humiliated by having no underwear, can I suggest we all have a long way to go before we can say we truly stand together. But I also take enormous encouragement from the actions of those who do stand up for others. It seems to me that it is all of our jobs to get those at the top holding hands and standing next to, together with those at the bottom. I have been so fortunate to be invited to many of these Dialogue Society and Fellowship Education Society iftars, and I always find them supportive and I always find friendship. I am grateful for the opportunity again given to our RSG to stand together with you all tonight as you celebrate Ramadan and as we all face difficult and challenging times in this spirit of friendship. So thank you, shukran, and Ramadan Mubarak.
Thank you so much, Nick. And as you said, hopefully we can all stand together to help those who are really in need. Thank you so much for your hard work as well. Our next panelist is Ian. Welcome, Ian.
Good evening, and thank you very much for your invite tonight, and thank you to the Dialogue Society for making this possible. I think the most interesting thing for me is to tell you a bit about myself. Is Launchpad Reading has about 117 properties which we house people. We work with around 200, 300 people each month. So it's a kind of challenge. And since the outbreak of coronavirus, we've continued to work. So we have 117 people we have to look out. And so day in, day out, we've been kind of going to accommodation, making sure people are safe and sound. And during that period of time, we've only lost one person. One of our clients died. Fortunately, not linked to coronavirus, but every death is a kind of tragedy in that sense. In terms of me, I kind of think that I've been doing this work for 43 years now. So I've worked in social services, charities, and this is the worst time I can ever remember. Not the worst time because of the coronavirus, which is a pandemic, is terrible, but the worst time in terms of how our society looks. I did love the phrase of ego logic, because I think we're dominated in a world where ego logic is everything and people are not important. And my heart bleeds when I hear Nick talking about the appalling injustice which is poured onto people who are vulnerable. So when COVID-19 broke out in Reading, Reading's a fantastic community, wonderful community, pulled together businesses, individuals, charities, different religious groups, secular groups, all pulled together and really worked very hard to ensure people were safe and sound. Reading Borough Council, who in theory had 13 people homeless on the streets, ended up with 120. So they've housed nearly 129 to be precise. And when you look at the figures, Berkshire originally had apparently about 30 people sleeping on the streets. The number's over 200 people who every night before the pandemic used to sleep on the streets, who were uncounted, and there was like very little concern about. So at the present moment, it is wonderful for them. They get somewhere to live, they get food, they get support, and their life is improved. And at the present moment, we have 20 of them lined up to come into our accommodation. That still leaves 109 just in Reading. So when we look forward to the future, what happens in terms of those 109? Do we turn around and say, bad luck, it's one of those things in our society, you're a casualty, you've been left to kind of just by the wayside? Because before this, they had. Before this, we've become a very uncaring society. And in case you think I'm some kind of nice middle-class liberal, I grew up in Liverpool in the 1950s and 60s, lived in a tenement building, lived in poverty. And nowadays I look around the world and I look around the UK and think, I grew up in a far better world than the world that exists now. I grew in a world that cared. a world that provided accommodation. Whereas when I look around my staff team now, who are mainly in their 20s and 30s, they're going to spend the rest of their lives like students, moving from accommodation unit to accommodation unit. There's no stability. There's no job security. They have far less than I ever had. And it's a tough world which is actually out there. So when I hear people talking about pulling together, I think it would be wonderful. I think it would be wonderful that people develop social consciences. I think it'd be wonderful that people thought the most important thing was not being building H2S, a railway train that will get us to Birmingham half an hour faster. But it took the money invested in social housing so people had places to live. I think in terms of the cruelty of our society where we penalize people constantly. For instance, one of the nice things about universal credit is if you turn up at 9 o'clock for your 9 o'clock appointment, but there's a queue and you get in at 9:10, you're penalized. And we seem to accept punishing the poor as one of the natural facts of our existence at this present moment. So I have to say, I would love to be optimistic about the future. I would love to think that there will be a change. I would love to think that we're going to invest large amounts of money in structures to enable those people at the bottom, the working poor, to actually do something positively, to have homes that they can live in, to have homes that they can actually live in for more than 6 months. But I suspect many of us in the charity sector think we're facing a very bitter future. I will close now. And in which case, I thank you for the opportunity to speak and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ian, and good luck with all your work as well. Now I would like to move to Gulistan. Welcome, Gulistan.
Welcome.
Hello. You are the trustee. You are a trustee of Time to Help UK. So could you please give us some details about the projects that you do, especially during Ramadan and this pandemic?
Of course. So just a little information about me. I'm a teacher. I teach design and technology, but I got involved with this charity, Time to Help UK, whilst I was in university because it was so transparent to me. They were open to inviting everyone to come abroad with them. So I got involved with them. And my first trip with them was to Kenya, where we refurbished an orphanage. And it was my idea to go there, and I love the flexibility of it. And now I'm a trustee, and I'm not even surprised. I don't regret it. It's amazing what the charity does. So a little information about the charity itself. It's a registered charity established in London in 2013. It works nationally and internationally. The current projects that we've done during Covid-19 is even before the virus had appeared and all this lockdown happened, we were running an online English language for the refugees. And after this lockdown happened, the increase happened so quickly that we had so much refugees getting involved with this. And we also distributed food for parcels for these refugee families as well. Another project is we've started a Here to Help campaign where we supported vulnerable and disadvantaged people in the UK. We've given out free food parcels, helped with people with their shopping, especially their medication. And my favorite part was building friendship whilst we were doing this. It's amazing how it's opened this opportunity where we met a lot of people in the community, especially elderly. I never knew there was so much elderly around in the neighborhood. We've also prepared 200 pack lunches for the homeless with our volunteers. The projects overseas we've done, in Greece we distributed food parcels in refugee camps. In Yemen we've distributed food parcels as well for the destitute, and also supported an orphanage there. This Yemen project it became so popular that one of our volunteers actually started a campaign called 5 Kick Up Challenge, where one person tries to kick a football 5 times, donates £5, and then nominates 5 other friends. This became so viral on Instagram. We're actually very surprised about the outcome. that it's still carrying on even now. And from here I want to thank all of our volunteers who contributed. In Tanzania we've supported elderly homes, and we also raising money to support people in Pakistan. We're still building on that. These are like the overview of what we've done. These are all done because of our donors and our volunteers. So I want to thank them. I want to thank people in the frontline workers as well. I mean, it is a challenging time that we're going through. But every time I was clapping for the NHS workers, I thought about everyone else who contributed to becoming safe. We're all here, we're safe and sound. So I also did this yesterday, but I want to end this conversation with clapping. If everyone can clap for each one of us for contributing, is that okay, Emel?
Yeah, sure, that's fine.
Yeah, is that okay? Not just for the NHS, but I think we should clap for each other for a positive. Thank you so much for having me. I mean, that's just like a quick overview.
Thank you so much to you, Gulistan, and hopefully your hard work will be, spread out and you can.
I hope so. Thank you.
So sorry, everyone, we're running a bit late with the time, but we've got our final speakers, who's actually a family. So we're going to visit the Sarach family and join them for iftar. So hi, Mr. Harun Sarach.
Hi, hello, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Thank you for accepting us to be guests at your home. Could you please share your family's feelings and thoughts about Ramadan during this terrible pandemic?
Actually, we would like to host you at our home, but it's not real. So I'm really appreciate Dialogue Society to getting us together, even on Zoom. It's a digital gathering, actually. My wife, Mine, maybe.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
And so during the pandemic, actually we've been locked down and staying at home. And so this year we couldn't invite our friends and brothers to our home. But it's really excited, and we've been prepared like we are hosting you at our home. So it's good. We are feeling well to seeing everybody on the Zoom, and then we have talked about Dialogue Society and about the community, how they're feeling in Ramadan. So in Ramadan, we believe that the respect to society and the unity is increasing. So during the pandemic, we couldn't get together with the people in person, but with this activity, so Dialogue Society helped us. We have gathered together, and then we are feeling the same feelings as well.
Thank you so much, Mr. Harun Sarach, and we hope you enjoy your iftar as a whole family. May Allah accept your fasting.
Thanks so much.
Before we end this event, again, I would like to thank all the volunteers at Reading for all their participation in preparing food packages and helping out. I would like to thank our panelists for taking part in our event. I would like to thank our viewers for sharing this event with us. We hope everyone, you and your family, keep well and safe during this whole pandemic. And before I end, I would like to remind you to not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on our social media accounts for more information about upcoming events. And good evening to all, and have a lovely iftar to those who are opening their fast. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you and good night.
Good night.
Thank you.